Welcome to the Calder Farmstead.
Now the Ice Hawks back out to center in transition. Carlson with Quenneville 2-on-1. Right with Carlson, Quenneville scores!
Here's a chance for Fera. He scores! Off the face-off! Up in Zimminger. Pulled back to Werenski. Has it. Shoots one. Bounces off a man. 5 seconds left. Werenski. Another jam on the shot. Turning and firing. They go! Scores! They score! Now they catch each other. They both go right over the top. Matching rights to one another. McDermott gets the helmet off of Cassie.
And now with 9 minutes gone in overtime, the Bears breaking out right side with Bear. Looks like cutting to the net. Bear will score!
And here are your hosts, Cece and Sean.
Hello and greetings from the mile-high city of Denver, Colorado.
And Huntsville, Alabama.
Oh, welcome to the Calder Farmstead podcast, episode number 28 for Tuesday, April 12th, 2021. It's actually going to be April 13th, 2021. Apparently, I'm stuck in Monday. Still harboring that case of the Mondays, apparently. If you were hoping for a podcast featuring vaccination tips for dairy cows, we are not going to be much help. This is an American Hockey League podcast, and my name is Cece Hockley.
And I'm Sean O'Brien.
And as always, we thank you for tuning in with us.
If you're new into hearing Cece and I talk about hockey, we're going to recap last weekend in the AHL for you. Mostly the West Coast, but, we'll try and touch a little bit everywhere. We both watch a lot of AHL games and are going to talk about what we see when we watch film, as well as use some advanced stats to help us break it down. If that's new to you, you might want to head over to our podcast feed or YouTube channel, wherever you're listening to us from. Scroll all the way down to the bottom there and click on episode 0. It's a short primer on some of the stats we're going to talk about, as well as how we view what's important on the ice. So if you're new to some of the more advanced hockey stats terms like PDO or the point shares model, or newer hockey terms like controlled zone entries, go check that out so you better be able to pick up what we're putting down. I promise it's not that nerdy or technical. It's only 20 minutes. And let's be honest, you wasted 20 minutes today refreshing Twitter for trade deadline day. So why not spend a little more time talking hockey with us?
Oh boy, it was more than 20 minutes. I'll tell you that much. But yes, the NHL trade deadline has come and gone. And, but we've got some AHL hockey to talk about because boy, wasn't it an eventful weekend for sure. And first and foremost, we're going to be bringing back on the Tucson, the Arizona Daily Star, Tucson.com, University of Arizona School of Journalism. I mean, Brett Fera has his fingers in a lot of pies in regards to his sports writing. So we're bringing him back on to talk about the weekend that was between the Tucson Roadrunners and the San Diego Gulls. Brett, thanks for coming back on the show.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Glad to be back.
Of course. And yes, all three of us decided to pick Tucson on Friday and San Diego on Saturday. Boy, were we wrong. Friday,
we had
San Diego.
Wrong.
Yes, we did. Friday, San Diego, 8-6. What a score fest. Not a snore fest, but a score fest. And Saturday, Tucson coming back 4-1 to get the victory. So a little flipperoo there in regards to all that. A wild one on Friday, like I said. Boy, much more normal looking game from the box score side of things on Saturday. Sean, you start off. What were the big differences in these games? And then we'll go over to Brett.
I saw 4 big overarching differences from Friday's game to Saturday's game. In broad categories, I would say rush chances, rebounds, bad officiating, and time travel.
Time travel. Huh. Okay, we'll get to that later. But Brett, like I said, big score fest on Friday. A little more of a normal hockey score, if you could say that on Saturday, I meant. What was the difference between the two?
I honestly think in terms of the Roadrunners, there wasn't that much different offensively. I mean, I think the fact of the matter is they went about a 7-game stretch with 11 goals, I think, and then now have 14 in their last 3 games. So from that, we talked about it last week when I got to join you guys, from the last game they played against Henderson to the Friday night game with 6 goals scored offensively and to Saturday scoring 4. I think they found a little bit of a rhythm offensively. I think the biggest issue was, and Tucson coach Steve Potvin talked about it post game, was being able to kind of get that little bit of puck luck, that timely save, And he wasn't throwing his goaltenders under the bus, but he was saying, he goes, look, there's got to be an opportunity early where we do stop one or two of those. And the reality was against San Diego on Friday, they didn't stop any of those early odd man rushes. None of them. I mean, to fall down that fast, that hard. And it was virtually every odd man rush was how those goals were scored. So to me, it was just defensively, they came out extremely flat on Friday and then woke up a little in the second period knowing, all right, we got nothing to lose, and just started firing. I mean, 52 shots was a little bit absurd, but I don't know if that answers the question. It's not as succinct as Sean's answer, but it's definitely how I saw it. I think offensively, though, they finally found a little bit of a rhythm.
Well, and Sean's definitely, I mean, he had 4 big differences. He's definitely going to break those down. First,
I need to hear time travel too.
Yeah, right. You'll hear time travel for sure. First off was rush chances. Sean, let's start with that.
Yeah, on Friday, the biggest difference I noticed is Tucson had skaters get caught below the dots in the offensive zone all the damn time, whereas San Diego routinely had forwards be conscious of where they were and not to get trapped behind the play. Kind of like our assessment has been throughout the year, more or less, is that Tucson doesn't generate a lot of odd man rushes, but when they do, they bury them. They're very good at finishing on those chances. And San Diego looked a lot like Cleveland in games against Chicago, where they are doing their damnedest to prevent those chances from happening. You see a third forward floating near the blue line anytime there was kind of a questionable puck of could this become a transition move for Tucson. They were always bringing guys back. And in those moments that they did manage to catch Tucson below the goal, below the dots, they just sprinted through the neutral zone to force an odd man rush. I mean, there was zero finesse in these moments either. It went step 1, recover puck. Step 2, see open ice in front of you. Step 3, get on your horse and gallop through the neutral zone. And San Diego also back-checked their asses off on Friday, at least through the second period when the game was still, maybe somewhat in question. There were very few times in which there weren't 4 goals in the frame when Tucson had the puck in transition. So a lot of it was just them doing a really good job of stifling the rush chances for Tucson and just sprinting down the ice anytime they had a shot at one.
Sean, did you see Trevor Zigras' goal after the three of us talked about him last week and what he was going to be able to do for San Diego? Do you remember that goal late in the first period? I think about 15, 16 minutes in. It was exactly what you're talking about. I think Andrew Podorowski was the San Diego player who sort of broke free as the puck kind of just skipped over the Roadrunners blue line. And there's no way he should have gotten to that puck first, but just blew past, and I have to go back and watch the video, but blew past whoever was in the Desert Sand 5th anniversary jersey for the Roadrunners that night. And he gets pulled down, hand goes up for a delayed call just inside the blue line. He's on his knees and just whips the puck right to the crease, and Zigras just boom, taps it in. I mean, there was no chance. I want to say Chris Nell was in at that point. Odd situation. Connor Lecouve, the Roadrunner starter, got pulled and then got put back in the second. I don't know if I've seen that in a long time, but Chris Nell was in that at that point and just had zero chance. I mean, it was an odd man rush that never should have happened, even after it started happening. But they just converted. And you said no finesse, and I don't think that was finesse, but it was really interesting how clean they made difficult plays look like that. So.
It also was very much like it was like watching the offense from an EA NHL sports game. Like there wasn't, so much like intricate system of breakouts. It was more just get puck, skate puck. And I do remember that goal when you said it, because I remember thinking that there was some controversy on that as whether or not there was, I think either a puck went in for Tucson that they thought went in and it turned out it didn't. And then immediately, like as soon as I saw the rush chance, I'm like, this is going in the net for the Gulls, because that's the way, karma works. Tucson thinking they scored one, and then immediately following that is a goal for the Gulls on what looked like a goal I've seen scored on EA Sports NHL games a billion times.
And what about Saturday night's game, Sean, to wrap up the rush chances?
Saturday, you didn't really see that from the Gulls catching Tucson with those skaters deep in the zone. I'm not saying that the Tucson didn't do that. It's just that when the Gulls had those moments, they didn't opt for that neutral zone sprint for a rush chance. Instead, you saw somewhat of a reversal of rush chances as Tucson definitely generated more on Saturday than they did so the old-fashioned way, beating forecheckers by making good passes, by out-skating the first or second forechecker, or by just deking the crap out of them. There were a couple that Tucson skaters had coming out of the zone where they just absolutely highlight reeled some guy on their way through the neutral zone into an odd man rush. So you saw that big, overwhelming kind of flurry from San Diego of catching guys deep on Friday, and then Saturday, just the opportunities I think were still there, but it seemed like San Diego was tired from skating the life out of Tucson the night before.
I think that's possible. Do you know the name Kyle Neuber? Do either of you know that name?
Doesn't ring a bell off the top of my head.
Off the top of my head, no.
He signed on the 7th by the Roadrunners. 6'2", 230, right winger. Hasn't played in the AHL in 9 years. Has bounced around the ECHL, Canada's the CIS, Canada's interscholastic leagues. So played college hockey in Canada after being in the AHL. I think he played in Australia last year. They signed him on the 7th. He gets his first game action in 9 years at the AHL level on Saturday for the Roadrunners. In the first period, lays 2 huge hits early to the point that I gotta see who it was. Hang on, let me get the name. Oh, it was Jamie Devane. Kind of eggs him on with about 5 minutes to go, and they at it at center ice. And I look, I know analytics is your thing, Sean, but and I hate fighting in hockey. I'm a weird person to say that, but that absolutely woke up the Roadrunners. And a minute later, they end up scoring on the power play to go up 2-0. And it was just interesting seeing a dude that literally has not skated in this league in 9 years just come in and basically bully a couple of guys around. And the next thing you know, the other 23 guys on the team are just going nuts for the next 2.5 periods. And so just interesting.
Remember that moment now that you said it, but I didn't recall the name off the top of my head. Usually
I didn't know who he was, and I'm like, huh? And I see the roster. I'm like, I haven't seen this guy. Who is this? And I start looking up, and I'm like, it's literally been 9 years since he skated in this league. I think he last played for Toronto in 2012. I mean, just kind of weird. But wow. You find those random guys that have a purpose, and his job was to go out and do your point, to shake up San Diego a little bit, that they weren't going to be able to push around Tucson like they did on Friday night, at least for the first 2.5 periods.
Well, next point that Sean had was for rebounds. So Sean, we're going to pivot. There was a lot of rebounds. I mean, Sean and I watched this game and kind of broke down some film together. Boy, the rebound control was the name of the game, or lack thereof, I should say.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to goalies in this weekend series, but it was like watching an EA NHL game where the goalie's rebound control slider is just set to 0. There were so many bad rebounds. I thought Jack Daniels and Tinder were the presenting sponsors for the weekend. It was, I mean, spoiler alert, when you send a rebound directly into the slot, bad outcomes happen. Mm-hmm. And if you're at home thinking, well, that's why you take these low percentage shots from distance for rebounds, no, that's not how rebounds work. You give a professional goalie more time to see and reacts via space from the shooter and clear sight lines, he's going to be able to better control where that rebound goes. It's supposed to get kicked into the corner or out of play or into his chest. No, this weekend, though. I lost count of the number of just awful rebound goals on Friday. And while fewer rebound goals happened Saturday, it certainly was not from a lack of opportunity, more of just the shooting team could not corral the rebound into another shot. But this was just if I'm the goalie coach for either of these teams, Friday probably gave me gray hair.
Yeah, wasn't it Dostal and Lecouve? I mean, did you notice that on Friday, Brett, that rebounds were a little bit out of control?
Yeah, they were absurd. I mean, even on Tucson's end, where Dostal did a better job with them, and the Gulls overall did a better job with them. But I mean, most of those shots, it wasn't just screaming into the zone and firing. There were 3 and 4 shot zone chances or exchanges that were happening. And even when Dostal couldn't cover it up, Dostal was covering it up a lot. And there were a lot of San Diego zone face-offs and they would stick Freddie Gauthier out there, who's, I don't know the number, but they're claiming, the team is internally claiming, because they don't share this, but they're claiming he's somewhere in the 80% range right now on faceoffs. I think that might be an exaggeration, but basically their point is they were putting him out there and they were getting 3 and 4 times, even when they're trailing whatever it was, 7-4 or 7-3, they were getting 3 and 4 faceoffs in a row down right next to Dostal. And so even when he was covering up rebounds, it was still leading to further chances. But yeah, the rebounds were absurd on both sides. I mean, there was I think the Roadrunners all-time record for shots in a game is 55, and they hit 52 on Friday night. That was not one of the 6 offensive records that were set in that game by the Roadrunners.
Yeah, I mean, you play for 5 years, you're gonna, 6 offensive records.
Yeah, most goals combined, most goals by a single player, first 4-goal game in Roadrunners history by Mike Carcone. Most assists in a game, Kevin Roy had 5. Most points in a game, tied, Kevin Roy had 5. What else? Most goals against was tied. They've given up 8 like 6 or 7 times. And Carcone had 11 shots on goal. That's a club record.
Yeah, I remember seeing that and just. I was like, part of me, when you see shot counts get that high, I'm like, I accept some level of error in shot counts, but I didn't go back when I was watching with the clicker and do it myself. I also very much in those stats. I mean, like I said, I believe there to be a level of error in there because I know the people that do those, like, and even at the NHL level, the people that do those are mostly volunteers or, low paid interns and stuff like that.
Right.
But at the same point, they threw a bunch of rubber at the net, and a lot of it bounced all over the place. Dostal did a better job corralling rebounds, but there were 1 or 2 where I was just like, how do you kick that right to the slot? Like, it was a shot from the point that, you white of the eye, stare the guy down, and you're still kicking this rebound, like, right into prime real estate. I mean, Tucson wasn't any better in that. If anything, they were probably substantially worse, but it was just, it was not a good a game for goalie coach resume building.
Well, and it was funny because last week we had thought it would be the opposite goaltenders with those results. We thought that Ole Eriksson Ek was going to have the better game against Tucson, and even though Dostal got the win, still gave up 6 goals on 52 shots. So the numbers aren't terrible, but they're not good. They're not horrible.
Yeah, for getting peppered. I mean, it's, he could have let up a few more maybe, but anyway, last topic on the ice that Sean brought up, we do have to talk about the officiating. And I know that neither Sean nor I are big into crying foul over officiating being to blame in the game, but it was not a very well officiated game.
No. And in a perfect world, the standard of officiating would be identical game to game, where what is a slash, a cross check, a hook, etc. would stay the same game in, game out. But we don't live in that world, and that's okay. But some refs will call penalties every time a guy hits the ice. Others will stare down a guy getting cross-checked in the lower back and think that that's a hockey play. But setting a standard for what will be a penalty and will not be a penalty is a pretty simple thing and rather common practice amongst refs in professional hockey. If you're going to let guys do some slashes and cross checks throughout the game, then that's how it's called. If you're going to call every time somebody, puts a knee on the ice, then that's the way the game is called. Well, that's not what happened in Friday's game. First period, we're calling every hook, slash, trip, whatever. Personally, I like it that way. I'd rather you call penalties and not me have to play any guesswork. Second period, it's a penalty, but only if it's on Tucson. Third period, basically prison rules unless it's puck over glass. Saturday's game, a tamer affair, but still mostly waxing and waning between makeup calls and prison rules. And I just, that's got to be frustrating for everyone involved, especially if you're a fan of the game or a league official. Like, this is not the product that you want to see from your officials when the calls are this sporadic. The fact that Keegan Lowe made it through the entire weekend with 0 penalty minutes, that should be like a finable offense amongst the officials for what happened, because he did not commit 0 penalties in those games. And I'm just, that frustrates me as a, neutral observer to see that poor of an officiating job, not just from a missing calls aspect, because yes, it's a fast game with 12 guys in the ice. You're going to miss calls, but from a, like, I stared down a guy doing a penalty I called in the first period and just kind of letting it go now. We want to get out of here. It's 8-3 or whatever. That's unacceptable.
Yeah, and I mean, when you've got Adrian Denny, the broadcaster for the Tucson Roadrunners, saying, well, I guess they're not calling penalties this period in the second period. I mean, Sean and I were kind of like, and then we realized yes, it's true. They're not, at least if you're not the Tucson Roadrunners, which they got whistled a few times there later in the second period on Friday. But Denny was correct. I mean, when when you have such an imbalance, I mean, it's
really only 3 penalties called all night Saturday. I mean, if you really look at it, you take that fight away we were talking about, the Kyle Neuber, Jamie Devane fight. There's only 3 penalties the whole game, 1 in each period, and one was a bench minor for too many men on the ice, and one was high sticking by the now AHL Player of the Week Carcone, and the other one was Simon Benoit closing his hand on the puck. I mean, those are, to your point, Sean, you kind of said this earlier, like prison rules, unless it's getting flipped up over the glass, those are kind of and I mean, the high sticking from Carcone is the exception, but too many men on the ice and closing your hand on the puck are really what we're calling. That's it.
And that too many men on the ice, like that was one of the most flagrant ones I've ever seen. Because usually when a too many men on the ice penalty gets called, like I'm following the play, I don't see it. I saw that one live and I'm like, oh my God, he wasn't even close. Like the guy's not even out of the slot and you're jumping on the ice. Like,
it reminded me of one earlier this year that didn't get called when there was I can't remember who it was against. It may have been early in the season against San Jose when the Barracuda were the home team in Tucson in a weird start to the year. And there was a play where it was exactly like that. The guy was at center ice going off when the other Roadrunner jumped on, and somehow the puck just like ricocheted out and hits the guy that was coming off, like before he's like 5 feet from the bench. The puck just drops dead. He goes, no call. And I'm like, but you're right. The one the other night was just as blatant as that. It wasn't that bad where the puck was in the way, but it was just as blatant.
And, Brett, speaking of calling stuff, I mean, this is a little bit pivot before we get to time travel, but you did accurately say Carcone was going to get AHL Player of the Week in your tweets. I did notice that.
I wondered if he would, because he was the 3rd star with 4 goals on Saturday or on Friday in an 8-6 loss.
Oh my God!
There was a point where he had, in a span of, what was it? It was a span of 54 minutes, had 5 goals. Between Friday and Saturday, 54 minutes of action. So 5 minutes into the third to 1 minute, or so 56 minutes, 5 minutes into the third to 1 minute into the second on Saturday. He had 5 goals and finishing with 6 between the 2 games. So yeah, pretty nuts, but not for the shameless plug, but I wrote about him today. He's an interesting case. He's one of these guys that's sort of like the no man's land players. He's on loan from Nashville. He did not get sent to Chicago. Where the majority of the rest of the Nashville players, they ended up sending him and Josh Wilkins. I haven't really gone down the rest of their contracted players to see who else they may have sent elsewhere, but they sent Josh Wilkins and Carcone to Tucson. Basically, Carcone told me earlier in the season that, he saw that as just kind of like he's signed by them because they traded for him from Ottawa in the offseason and didn't really know what to do with him. And so he's kind of in this weird no man's land, and played great the first weekend, had 3 goals in the first 3 games, and has 1 since, and then 6 over this week. So it's just a strange makeup, but yeah, I haven't seen a single player rush like that. And he had two really clear chances for another hat trick on Saturday. About 4 or 5 minutes to go, broke free on a breakaway, and you thought the whole building thought he's going to do it, and then he got too tight and he couldn't actually get a shot off, and that just basically drove the puck straight into Eriksson Ek's pads, and then had the puck on his stick with an empty net and flung it down the ice and was wide by about, 6 feet maybe. I mean, too wide, obviously, not even close, but like he had the chance if he got a clean shot off. So could have even been a crazier weekend from him.
Yeah, and I think the thing that was the most bizarre for me is watching him over these 2 games. Like, he looks like he's been the trigger man off the right half wall for his entire career. Like, that wasn't some, like I've seen guys score crazy goals in a weekend, and it's just a lot of fluky, bounces. Like he gets a gift in the slot, or it's an empty net goal or something.
No, he was winding up.
Yeah, he was ripping one-timers from that half wall. Like that was, like he was basically Alex Ovechkin Jr. And it was one of those things where I'm like, where has this been your entire career? Like, the guy has 4 power play goals this year. He scored more power play goals this weekend than he did in the time span from St. Patrick's Day 2019 to present.
Well, it's like, I look at the same with Kevin Roy, who's on that line. I mean, that line of Carcone, Roy, and Gauthier, I mean, Gautier's got 170 NHL games under his belt, so you're going to get something out of him. He's, from what they're saying, and I mean, I saw it, but I mean, I'm not counting every draw, but he's winning draws. And Roy had 7 assists this weekend, and a couple of those, I not all of them, but 1 or 2 of them were secondaries, but the majority, he's the one setting up that play, and he's playing out of his mind. I think he finished the night on Saturday. I think he's 3rd now, but finished the night on Saturday, 2nd in the league in points. For a guy that's never been, more than 0.7 points a game in his career. He's got 26 in 23 games. It's kind of crazy with these two. And, obviously Roy's been more consistent, but he's in an interesting spot too. Kind of like Carcone, not to get too deep. I know we only have so much time here, but kind of like Carcone with Nashville. Roy, blew out his wrist a couple of years ago in training camp with Anaheim after spending almost 3 full months with the Ducks, and finishes the season in San Diego, comes into training camp with Anaheim, blows his wrist up. He's out for almost 4.5 months, doesn't get back on the ice till February. He gets 3 games with the Ducks, and then they don't re-sign him. And he's bounced around since for the last 2.5 seasons. And so he came in on a PTO. Kevin Roy came in on a PTO in January to Tucson. And he's 2nd in the league in scoring. I mean, it's nuts that these things are even happening. And oh, by the way, they're the 2nd worst team in the league over the last month. So it's just, none of it makes any sense, but
it's 2021, and this year is just completely, predictability.
Well, speaking of that, then can we get the time travel now?
Yes, absolutely.
Do I get to steal your thunder, CC, by asking, since you're talking about 2021 and how weird of a year it is? We need to hear the time traveling now.
No thunder getting stolen at all. There's plenty of thunder to go around. So Sean, time travel.
I don't know how you guys watch these games. I usually watch them via AHL TV on Archive. I usually don't watch live games, mostly because I don't like sitting, for long periods of time while there's TV timeouts or whatever. Because I end up like, oh, I got a minute and a half. I'll get up, go grab a snack, and I come back and 4 minutes are gone or something like that. But both of these games were incredibly difficult to watch, just from like watching the archive and fast forwarding through commercials and breaks and stuff, because they literally would have, sequence going on as normal and then just cut 30 seconds ahead, cut 25 seconds back, cut 30 seconds ahead, cut 10 seconds ahead, cut a minute back. And like, I don't know what happens to other, like your guys' feeds, but that's what mine looked like. I felt like I was time traveling watching this game. And it's been a regular theme from AHL TV here and there, but it has definitely been worse trying to watch the Tucson games. And the thing that makes it the most annoying for me is, like, I understand live, when it's happening live, you just got to go with whatever's going on. Like, if something goes wrong and it buffers and the stream gets weird, that's fine. But like for the archived version, you clearly have film of that game. You couldn't upload the correct film for the game for the archived version. Like, help a brother out here, guys.
The thing that always happens to me, and it's mostly during games when I'm trying to watch and get sort of like a replay for myself, of because like I'm at the arena on Friday and Saturday, and it's hard. Like I'm struggling this season in particular, just because of internet problems and where I have to sit, which is away from the press box, which I understand. And it's been tougher to actually pay closer attention, but I'll usually have AHL TV up in the arena to basically be able to rewatch a play to make sure that I saw how it went down. And this has been for years, and I am not trying to ruffle feathers with my Tucson friends. I have no idea if this is a Tucson issue or league wide, because I have seen it on road games for the Roadrunners too. But I will basically hit the 15 seconds back or whatever it is, 30 seconds, 15, I can't remember,
15.
But the back button, and go back 15 seconds. And like 3 seconds before whatever the play is I wanted to watch happens, the thing just freezes. Every other time it freezes up. And it makes me think that there is something with I know that there is internal like play recording mechanisms through the league to save all these big plays and goals, that when it happens, it sort of screws up the stream or the feed, because it's always like 2 or 3 seconds before. Like I tried to watch that pass we were talking about from Podorowski to Zigras, and you can't see it because right as Zigras goes to his knees, all of a sudden it locks up, and it's right at that moment. And so, yeah, it's been tough, but I don't know. I have bigger things I think to criticize about everything that's gone on in the last year, especially even with hockey, that I haven't thought about it much. But you're right. It's not a good opportunity for people to watch, in that context. I will say the Roadrunners have done a pretty solid job locally getting games on TV for the first time this year. They've got six TV broadcasts this year, and I don't just say that because I was part of the first two, but it was fun. It was something I've never experienced before, and I'll probably never do again. But doing color for a professional hockey game at the AHL level was not something I came into the season thinking I was going to end up doing. And I will not pretend I was that good at it either. But it was a blast. But yeah, I think you bring up good points though, Sean. Like it's a weird setup, and it's the one that I've had the most trouble with this season is when Tucson's playing at. Oh, I'm going to get mixed up. It's either at San Diego or at Ontario. One of the practice rinks, basically.
Yeah, I mean, they're both in practice,
yeah. I can't remember which one it was, but it was two different games where you can't get the feeds right. The audio was synced up like 10 seconds off, which just makes it impossible because to your point of time travel, you're hearing a goal before you see it, which may be kind of cool. Like you're hearing Adrian Denny get really loud because he can be that way. And then all of a sudden the goal comes 10 seconds later. So, and that's obviously not on Tucson's fault if it's in a road barn, but no, your points are definitely well taken.
And like, I have some more leniency for some of the teams this year that are playing like, Ontario playing out of El Segundo or San Diego playing out of a practice facility where it's like, these buildings aren't wired for that kind of stuff. Like I have at least some level of sympathy or understanding, but like Tucson's playing in the arena that they play in the rest of the time there, like all 5 of their years, I believe, have been in that building.
Mm-hmm.
So like you should have this problem down to, okay, it happens from time to time. It's an old building and blah, blah, blah. But like, it seems like it's often with them. And that's, I think, the thing that bothers me the most is it feels like this shouldn't be as big an issue with them specifically in the same setup they would be in a normal season than it is. And it's frustrating to watch, especially watching other teams not have this problem when they're in their home arenas or when they're in worse conditions. Like I just, especially this weekend too, it was like, I'm trying to follow the play and, do analysis and take notes and it's jumping me all over the place. And I'm like, okay, I know I had one Truly, but did I only have one Truly?
Yeah. And who knows? I mean, especially if you're having issues with an established arena that, like you said, Tucson's been playing out of for 5 seasons now. I mean, it could be an AHL.TV thing. It could be an AHL, it could be a software issue, but and Brett made a very good point. I mean, when there was a goal or when there was a big event or something like that maybe the AHL kind of called for,
I don't know.
Highlight
it
package.
Could just be conspiracy. I see that with other games too, though, and it drives me crazy.
Sure. No, that's completely understandable. All right. Closing thoughts on the series. Sean, go first, and then we'll have Brett wrap us up.
I only have one since we talked about Michael Carcone a bunch already. I feel like all the points I had for the closing portion of it, we covered. He looks like a trigger man that's been doing that on the half wall for years. I have no idea where that talent's been hidden, but now that you've seen it, you got to let him do it, right? But
absolutely,
I think the big thing for me is watching Zigras progress as a center. This was, a press release event that he was going to come down and do this, and I saw some good progress from him as a center, and he still gets drifty at times playing wing tendencies and transition or exiting the zone, some of those like semi-structured kind of play events. But for the most part, he was pretty good at sticking with what you would see a typical center's responsibility in that kind of system. And I think eventually he'll iron out some of those wrinkles. In terms of like him being a 200-foot Patrice Bergeron center, no, I don't think he ever gets there. But I think that's more just because he's able to do more on offense, and I'm willing to let him have some slide on defensive aspects if it means he can do more offensive things. And trying to force players to do stuff they're not good at, that they don't do very often, in spite of their, high success rate, high frequency kind of plays, is bad coaching. And I don't think that San Diego is going to try and force that round peg into a square hole, especially despite what is a very gifted offensive player.
The first 3 minutes of that game Saturday, that was proven with Zigras by, and I know this is superficial, but essentially two penalties that had to be served. He served them both. One was the bench minor, and the other one was Jamie Devane's instigating penalty. And that shows that they are not expecting him to do much on the penalty kill, but they want his offense ready to jump out of the box and get an outlet pass. And so there's a very, I don't want to say one-dimensional, but maybe 2 and not 5-dimensional element to his game that was clear on both those nights. But you knew where he was at all times on the ice watching that game, even if you'd never seen him before, which I can raise my hand and say I hadn't in person at least up close at any length of time. And he may have only had the one goal, but he was absolutely easy to spot at all times.
I've said this analogy a bunch of times, but I always like bringing it up that you could tell that Mario Lemieux was Mario Lemieux when you watched him play, even if you set up high in the rafters and you couldn't see the numbers or anything like that. Just the way he skated, the way he handled the puck, you knew there was something special about him just from that. And Zigras is definitely that way. Even if you can't see his number or can't identify him from a distance, as soon as he gets on the ice and you watch him for 2 seconds, the way he moves, the way he handles the puck, you know that's somebody you need to pay attention to.
Yeah, I mean, being here in the Denver market, when you watch an Avalanche game, who do you notice on the ice? Nathan McKinnon. He's just, his style of play is unmistakable. I mean, even if you don't see the 29 on his back, it's like, you know, that's Nate McKinnon. So just by the way he handles the puck and the speed and everything. Well, Brett, we gotta let you go. I don't think we have anything else, right, Sean? I always jump the gun on this.
No,
well, Brett,
I took up too much time to be able to wrap up the series myself. That's all right.
No, I mean, if do you want to take a little more time?
I think I was going to say, just following Sean's lead.
Yeah.
Well, real quick, just following Sean's lead about kind of hitting on a specific player and something we saw out of him. The only thing I was going to say is that the player that impressed me the most that earned his lunch that over the weekend was Jan Unique. He had a rough night Friday, physically speaking, where he's a big dude and he's willing to mix it up. He got in a fight on Friday, got pretty much manhandled. Ended up smashing his hand into the glass, going into the penalty box at one point, took a cross check across the face, which actually I think resulted in a game misconduct from I can't remember who it was, but from whoever was on San Diego. It was Perot, that's right. Yeah. Came back on Saturday and, you know, scored a goal, which is, you know, just a goal, but his first point since the fourth game of the year. And for a guy that's one of their top 3 or 4 prospects in the whole organization, I think that was a big watershed weekend for him to, at the bare minimum, know that he can still mix it up and have an impact. And, you know, we'll see. You know, he's got to do more than that, obviously. But to kind of get off that, you know, I'm trying to count really quickly, probably like 16 games Schneid. Was a big deal. But even in the context of Friday night and being one of the few guys willing to physically go up against San Diego in a game they were dominating.
Seems to be a theme with Tucson players, just to start off the season strong with a goal or 2 or 3, and then just, you know, go games and games and games without nothing. And then, oh, hey, you know, big weekend this weekend and everybody scores, you know, it's like Steenbergen, you know, a couple weekends ago. But
Steenbergen's got 4 points in 3 games. He had 2 in the first 20. Like, it's just like, what is going on? So
yeah, it's kind of crazy. It's crazy. But Brett, you got another event to go to. You know, since you help out with the University of Arizona student media and the journalism portion of that university there. So yeah, that's kind of why I was like, all right, well, I don't want to keep you too long, but yeah, to allow you to wrap up and everything. I mean, by God, you've got a lot of great insight. You brought a lot to the table again, a lot of kind of DYK sort of stuff that Sean and I didn't have. So, I mean, once again, thank you so much for coming on the weekend recap, and we'll let you go, you know, say hi to your students for the first time in 13 months. So.
I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to getting a chance to come back and hopefully, you know, more interesting things, even if I'm not saying I root for this team. It's not my job, but I root for interesting stuff. So that's where you'll bring me back if there's something worth talking about.
A true journalist right there, rooting for some interesting stuff. I can appreciate it. Brett Fera, thanks again for coming on, bud.
All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
You bet. Oh, enriching again, the preview and the recap to have Brett on the show. Bring in a good third dimension, quite literally, to the Calder Farmstead.
Absolutely. But I do believe we are well overdue in ad breaks, as that was twice our normal kind of go time. And I'm completely good with that. That was good conversation. I've always said to Cece, like, I don't care if we run long as what we talk about is good. And that was as good as it gets. So
yes, let's
quick pay some bills here. The scenery behind me does not come free. So we'll be back in a little bit. Stay tuned because we're going to talk Colorado, Texas.
Welcome back from the other side. We just got done with Brett Fera talking about Tucson and San Diego and the weekend that was for those two teams. And now we're going to stay in the Pacific Division, at least one of the teams in the Pacific Division hosting the Central Division's Texas Stars. And I think I'm adequately prepared to talk about this series.
That's great. I would hope so. Yeah. I mean, you were at
me too.
50% of the games, so that feels good. Let's talk some results here first, though. Well, first let's get picks. You picked Colorado on Saturday, Texas on Sunday. You said a sweep if Newhook starts both games. Did Newhook start both games?
Newhook has not made his debut as of yet. The rumor mill is churning, though. Tuesday, as Colorado hosts Bakersfield, is what they say. So Newhook did not, but Sampo Ranta did. So another Avs prospect. So there's that.
I said Texas on Saturday, Colorado on Sunday. The model liked Colorado as a small edge in both games. Colorado swept Texas 3-0 on Friday, 4-1 on Saturday, outscoring them 7-1 in the series. I mean, Colorado took 3 out of 4 games again for their second 4-6 series with the Texas Stars this season. You were at the game Saturday, fresh arena smells and all. What is a major thing that stood out to you?
Yes, I sent Sean a picture. I'm like, greetings from Lundland. And he goes, how's the smell? And I said, smells sterile. like ice and just, nothing. It was strange, but we've already been down that road. So the major things, yes, that stood out to me from the game, the chemistry between Kiefer Sherwood and TJ Tynan. They just utilized the Royal Road, and Kiefer Sherwood just driving home those one-timers. I tell you, and Sherwood. Okay. So he had 4 goals on the weekend. 3 of those were power play goals. 3 of the formerly last place power play in the league as of like a month and some change ago, Kiefer Sherwood had 3 power play goals this weekend. And he also notched an assist on Saturday. TJ Tynan kind of did the flip. I mean, imagine that. He's more of a, generating offense generating offense by passing the puck rather than putting in the net. He had 4 assists, but he put one in the back of the net on Saturday. So literally transposed stat lines there between Sherwood and Tynan. Their chemistry was just super impressive. I mean, they read each other like they made it damn near impossible for Texas to stop the one-timer. Like that was just Tynan and Sherwood like all weekend long. Was just, a number of those goals from Sherwood was just Tynan setting him up. And again, on the man advantage or even strength. And, it was impossible for Texas to stop it, like I said, let alone prevent it from going into the back of the net, whether it was Shield or Colton Point. And I've said it once, I'll say it again. Tynan is one of the best playmakers in the AHL. And Sherwood has further proved his prowess as one of the Pacific Division's, if not one of the league's best goal scorers when he's with the club. I mean, he's only played 10 games this year, that whole taxi squad thing this season. So he's been up with the Avs taxi squad for a little bit. But another thing was it just amazes me how tenacious the Eagles were on puck pursuit. Like every time the puck entered either zone, whether the Eagles were, pushing it into Texas's zone or, collapsing back into their own zone to back check. Colorado was quick to jump into the fray and just go after the puck in the dirty areas. They're finishing their checks, and just mobbing Texas, and, not allowing them to really get a good, clean play on the puck. And, of course, Ryan Wagner, your usual balls to the wall guy, you definitely saw him flying around the ice, but guys like Alex Fortan and even Matt Apt, who was kind of a AHL, ECHL fringe guy coming into this season, they all were role-playing guys that stepped up to make the little things matter for the Eagles this weekend. And the proof was in the pudding.
So Texas has been on a roller coaster this season so far. I mean, they've been, a favorite in the Central Division by the model. Now they're, sliding back down to the basement after starting the season there. Where did it all go wrong for Texas this weekend in particular, though?
Well, I mean, it's like we talked about with Bakersfield, and we'll get to that more here in a little bit, but the star players decided to go into witness protection. The only goal from the Stars this weekend was from Thomas Harley. And, it wasn't a guy named Riley Damiani. It wasn't a guy named Nick Baptiste, not Adam Mascarin, not Cole Schneider. Texas didn't even have any assists on the weekend. Harley's goal was unassisted. So it's like, that was the only point that they scored this weekend. Sean, they couldn't get things going in Colorado zone for 4 of the 6 periods this weekend. And I think the shots on goal are indicative of that. Even that last 15-3 shots on goal, Texas versus Colorado in that Sunday game, they still couldn't produce anything. Like Colorado just, Hunter Miska was on point. Not Colton Point, just to clarify. But man, Texas just, the second period on Saturday, they had it going. The third period on Sunday, like I mentioned, but they just didn't seem to have any sense of urgency after getting scored on, or at all, by and large. They just seemed like a group playing not to lose than playing to win, if that makes sense. I mean, they were just playing to play. I don't know if they thought it was a scrimmage or what the deal was, but yeah, they were just kind of out there. And so it just didn't really seem like the Texas game from Wednesday, where it was a 1-1 game for a good portion of the match. So it was a different team this weekend. It was strange.
And I'm starting to wonder too, as we see this season start to kind of come to a close here. And Texas has by no means had the wild stretch of games that we've talked about with other teams, or the sparsity of games like the Groundhog Day division, where they've gotten pretty much their normal pace of games throughout the season so far. But I also imagine too, it's for some of these players, it's got to be get called up and get a shot with Dallas, or I guess they're running into garbage time here in Texas when they get to Cedar Point. Sorry, Cedar Point is not the correct Cedar. That's Cedar Park. Cedar Point has a roller coaster.
Colton Point, Cedar Park. Yeah. I get it. It's fine.
Speaking of goaltending, though, Shaw didn't make the trip to Loveland. So how did Adam Scheel and Colton Point fare? And Werner and Mishka for the Eagles?
Yeah, if he did make the trip, he was definitely incognito. But of course, those are things that, teams like to hold close to the vest. But yeah, Scholl wasn't on any of the 4 game sheets that I noticed. It was Scheel and Point for all the games. And quite frankly, Scheel, he looked all right. He looked okay in the game on Saturday when I watched him. He, at least for the first little bit of it. I mean, he only let 1 goal in 2 periods on Saturday. And with the weapons that the Eagles have, I thought that was pretty impressive. But then, he looked poised enough to save both the gimmies and some more of the difficult shots, to block on the net in those first 2 periods. I'll finish that thought. But Kiefer Sherwood, he had his number, and he had Point's number the next game too. But I digress. The confidence kind of wore off after Sherwood potted 2 goals on him, and Dan Renouf, got set up by Fortan across Royal Road in front. And yeah, I mean, that was just kind of it for Scheel. I mean, he let in those 2 goals later on in the game in the third, and that was all she wrote. I mean, he got rattled a little bit late there, and it was all she wrote.
I mean, if you're getting Royal Road goals scored against you, that's you're stretching across the crease there and praying to God that it hits you. There is no goaltending mechanics for that. I'll put that one more on defense. If you're getting beat by Royal Road one-timers, you're just sliding and praying.
That's true. Yeah. And that's kind of why I wanted to put a little more emphasis on the fact that he did well in the first 2 periods. I mean, there was a lot of opportunities and a lot of chances that he did stop. So, I mean, maybe his 3 goals against weren't as indicative to, the way that he actually played. It's hard to put my finger on it when, you have a team that's clicking as well as Colorado did this past weekend. It's like you put Scheel in there, you let up 3 goals. You put Point in there, you let up 4 goals. And, Point, speaking of Point, he kind of regressed into old form a little bit. That first 10 minutes of the first period, there were a couple chances where it's just like, oh, wow. Okay. They just, the Wednesday night vibes coming back again, but then he kind of regressed, and, he was, he was victim to that one knee one-timer from Sherwood. And yeah, and then the cracks started to appear. But in all fairness, again, in points defense, granted, the Eagles went 3 for 4 on the power play after that. So, I mean, they, like I said, they sit at 6th best in the league now. And when you've got your special teams clicking like that, and you got a combo like Sherwood and Tynan, that's just rocking it. I mean, unless your goaltenders like Logan Thompson is just balling out all season long, it's just, it's hard. It's a difficult thing to, and like you said, the defense didn't do them any favors either. They need to clog those lanes. They need to make sure that those one-timers across Royal Road don't happen, whether you're even strength or on the power play.
Yeah. What did you see from the Eagles side of things? I mean, how are Warner and Mishka?
Yeah. Sorry. You asked me that, but I got going on the Stars goaltenders and I got a little distracted. So Warner, he wasn't really tested much. I mean, yeah, he got his 3rd AHL shutout, 16 total shots on goal from Saturday, but then there's a little bit of puck luck. He also got bailed out from a couple shots that rang off the post and off the crossbar. So again, that puck luck, I mean, a couple inches and that might've been a goal. Who knows? But Miska, man, there was a reason that, top 10 goaltender last year, you could see it. There was that laser focus and, he definitely reminded everyone why he was, in the top 10 in a lot of statistics last year in the AHL. He's finding his swagger and his groove again. He went up to the NHL, like we talked about on this podcast, the fans, quote unquote, I use that term very loosely, hassled him to the point where he deleted his Twitter account. And, it's like, he got rattled. And that's unfair to him that he got bullied on social media. And then he comes back and he just continues to do what he does well at the AHL level. And that's, just dial in. And the case in point, I think late in the game, there was one save that he made on Anthony Lewis. Lewis had a yawning net and Miska just came right across with his stick and paddle save. Burp. Just paddled it right out of there. It was really impressive. And Miska doing Miska things when he's just laser focused and dialed in.
Yep. And we got a fan question from the Facebook Texas Stars fan page from Jason O'Carey and said, would love to hear what you think is going well for the team, what isn't, and how we can get a better spot to be considered for playoffs. So I'm fairly assuming that he's talking about the Texas Stars because that's where the fan page was pulled from.
Sure.
I would say for sure depth scoring has gone wrong for Texas. They remind me of Bakersfield's, and like you mentioned, that once that red hot top line cools off, they need the depth scorers to come in and do something, and they just haven't. Josh Melnick, 1 point in St. Patty's. Anthony Lewis, 2 points in St. Patty's. Nikita the Joker Sherbach, 3 points in St. Patty's. Cole Schneider, 3 points in St. Patrick's Day. That's not getting it done, especially on the nights where Macharon, Baptiste, and Diamani are not, clicking that night. I mean, those three are going to have scoliosis from carrying the offense for so long because if it's not them putting pucks in the net, there's nobody. Positives? I mean, I have to say, patron saint of the podcast, Thomas Scholl, blessed be his name, has to be one of them. He's 14 points better in save percentage than Colton Point, despite roughly equal playing time. And he's looked pretty good to my eyes. I think the AHL is probably the peak for him, barring, injury call-ups and situations like that. But going into next season, he's looking like a starting goaltender in the AHL. And that's something that I think the Stars are going to need, as Jake Ottinger seems to have cemented himself as a viable NHL goalie, at least for another season. He's currently a .917 save percentage in the NHL. And I mean, that's, he's not going to get any Vezina votes, but like, with Ben Bishop made of tissue paper because his style of goaltending lends itself to injury, and Anton Hudobin is, practically getting social security checks. Like having a guy like Ottinger is probably going to be something that the Stars look at in the offseason, because I don't think the taxi squads are going to be a thing next season. So one of those three seems like the odd man out, because it doesn't make sense to have three viable goaltenders when you only really need two. So I think Shaw being a guy that they can, count on to be, I feel like a reasonably good AHL starter for next season is a positive. I think too, when Texas gets their transition game going, they are able to actually generate offense. They have guys who can finish those transition, those 2-on-1 odd man rushes, those even man rushes, 2-on-2, 3-on-3. And when they can get, that transition game going, where they can make a turnover in the defensive zone into offense going the other way and a snap, like that's where they shine. But they've been struggling to generate those looks recently. And some of it is just not getting, control of those pucks when they do get turnovers and getting it north-south. Some of it is, teams forechecking them better and more effectively, dropping forwards back so that they don't get caught. I mean, CC, what are you thinking in terms of better positioning for the standings? Like, we don't know if playoffs are a thing that's going to happen, but in theory, could Texas make some moves up the standings with what the season has left for them?
That's going to be kind of tough. I mean, Texas being a Central Division team, they I believe are the ones out of the 6 Central teams are playing the most out of their division. So of the remaining games, only 6 are against Central Division opponents. They can't even steal points away from those clubs. And yeah, they play San Jose and Tucson instead of Chicago and Grand Rapids. They have a chance to catch Iowa, but Iowa just got loaded up with some fresh talent like Matthew Boldy, and Derek Baribeau is apparently healthy now. So, looking at the standings here, I mean, you've got Texas with, their point percentage is 0.480. So, I mean, yeah, don't even look at the points column because it's all about point percentage this year because of the random ass games that are played from everybody. But I mean, they could catch Iowa, but I mean, like, yeah, if Cleveland and Grand Rapids and Chicago continue to Chicago's a cut above, so they're at the top. They're not going anywhere. But Cleveland, Grand Rapids, I mean, they might catch Iowa, but I mean, Iowa, like you said, they've gotten reinforcements. Or like I said, rather. But I mean, you and I have talked about it, but yeah.
I don't think that they're I'd say Cleveland is probably too far ahead at this point. Unless Cleveland really just goes into the tank, but they could maybe catch Iowa in theory. In actual practice, Iowa's looking like it's picking up talents. Texas has looked like it's on the downswing again. I wouldn't say that that's a good shot. Grand Rapids has looked somewhat sturdy all season. They've been great in swings, but they've never really flown too high or swung too low. So getting them to dip below probably a 520 seems unlikely as well. I would say if you need to be top 4 to be in whatever playoff format could exist, I would not be feeling good if I'm the Texas Stars right now. I don't think it's too likely that they are able to jump one of those 2 teams ahead of them. That seems like a viable move for them. So sorry, Jason. I wish we had better news for you on that front, but there are some positives. I mean, the taxi squad is probably going away next year. So all those guys who've kind of been stuck in the NHL's version of purgatory are going to probably come back, get either spots with Texas next season, or are going to get called up to Dallas permanently. I'm still amazed that some of the guys that have stuck around with Dallas this year haven't come back to kind of dabble in AHL games, or have just stayed outright on the Stars roster, the Dallas Stars roster all year. Joel Kivaranza comes to mind. I still am shocked that he hasn't been in the AHL for most of the season. I don't know. I guess Bonus likes him. So,
when you score a hat trick in the postseason, I guess that kind of punches your ticket. I know, as you roll your eyes. We talked about that. We know. But hey, speaking of someone who is high on a team and is high on a specific player on a team, let's wrap this up with a quote from Colorado head coach Greg Cronin, and how he said that TJ Tynan is not one of the best, but the best player in the AHL. And Sean, you've got some thoughts, and you've got some feelings, and you've got some words about that.
I mean, first, how are we talking about best here? Are we saying best currently on an AHL roster? In that case, I say no. I best player on an AHL roster right now off the top of my head. Anyone from the kid line in Bakersfield, I would take over TJ Tynan. I take Matthew Boldy, Cole Caulfield, Trevor Zigras, all easily over TJ Tynan. Like, not just future potential them. I mean, them right now. I'm still taking them. Logan Thompson. I mean, yes, skaters and goalies are generally separated for that kind of thing. But, like, if we're talking just best player gives my team the biggest boost to win a game, Logan Thompson right now.
Right. Chicago Wolves, maybe Tanner Jeannot.
Tanner Jeannot for sure.
Mm-hmm.
If we want to define best player as guy who's played on an AHL roster this year, that's still not TJ Tynan. In addition to all of those other guys, Morgan Geekie has, had a cup of coffee here. I take him over TJ Tynan. Tanner Jeannot, like you mentioned. If we want to talk about guy who's had the biggest impact for his team or who has like done the most in accrued, I still don't pick TJ Tynan there either. I would take Tanner Jeannot, maybe Zigras. No, probably not Zigras for like season worthy resume. Any of the kid line from Bakersfield. I especially too, like Greg Cronin's had to have seen Zigras in games and coached against him. So this is, I don't want to say blasphemous, but like this is Greg Cronin bloviating. This is hyperbolic nonsense. Like, this is some Stephen A. Smith yell at the mic kind of thing. Like, okay, coach.
I mean, yeah, he's biased because it's his team. And TJ Tynan, like I've said, and I think there is some truth that rings to it, is that he is one of the best playmakers in the AHL. And if he's on his game, damn near the top, if not the best playmaker in the AHL. And I mean, yeah, there's a few that are in there, but again, night in, night out, you can make the argument that Tynan, and watching him play, we talked about with Brett, we talked about those players on the ice that you can tell when they're on the ice. And when Tynan's out there at the AHL level, you can see that. And you can see the speed and the pace of play and the vision that he has on the ice. And so I can see where Cronin's coming from with that. But yeah, to kind of just paint with broad strokes like that is a little, I don't want to say irresponsible, but it's definitely, bloviating is a good word for it.
I mean, if you wanted to say he's the best playmaker in the AHL, that I feel like is at least a little more reasonable. Like that, I would say I have to sit and name like, well, Caulfield's a shooter, Zigras is more of a shooter. Like there's some discussion to be had there. But like, I mean, Marodi's a shooter. Benson's not really a playmaker. Neither is McLeod. Like they can make plays, but that's not I wouldn't call that their like player archetype or whatever. So you have some discussion there, but like just best player period. No, like that's silly. And maybe if he was in like the Atlantic and it's like, wow, we don't really see anybody else. So yeah, this is the best player I get to see. Well then, okay, fine. But like, no, it's not even the best player in your division.
Yeah, the Pacific's pretty stacked in regards to competitiveness and talent. There's a good amount of talent out there as well, for sure. Well, we've got, let's see, one more series to cover, I believe.
Yep, a series, a cream of the crop, a quiz, and an outro. So let's take a break.
Let's do it. Listen to our sponsors. We shall return shortly. Okay, 2 series down, 1 to go. Well, not even a series, just a game. And it was the game of the weekend, at least for us, because you had the Henderson Silver Knights and the equally medievally themed, at least when it comes to our nicknames, the Bakersfield Condors, a.k.a. the Kingslayer. Yes. So, boy, Sean and I both picked Henderson. Chugga, 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 toot, toot. Riding that PDO train. Oh, and the model decided to be a little contrarian. 53.4%. Should we have listened to the model, Shawnee?
Yeah, probably. I think this is probably the first instance in we'd have to go back into the outline archives and look at this, like that both of us picked against the model and we're wrong.
Yes.
I don't think that's happened. This has got to be the first one where both of us are like, we're taking Henderson in this, and the model's like, not Bakersfield. And
I mean, I think we both picked Laval when no, I don't think Laval's ever been not high in the model. So
maybe one of those like Laval Stockton games early in the season when Stockton still was lighting the world on fire.
Maybe, and we both picked Laval, but yeah, Bakersfield 5-3 victory. First time, as we got our stats a little mixed up last episode, as a few Henderson fans pointed out to us, but this is the first time that the Henderson Silver Knights have lost back-to-back games. So Manitoba still doing the 17 home games up there in Canada. So that happened first. Henderson losing back-to-back games happened before Minnesota. Here I am going back to the IHL days, apparently, with the Moose. Manitoba still on their homestand in those 17 games in the midst of it. But yes, we are getting blamed, or at least, our podcast got added on social media saying, I blame the Calder Farmstead for this. And it's like, Sean, we made it. We're getting blamed for stuff. I sent that message late one night to Sean. I said, Sean, we made it. And he messages me back the next morning. Huh? It's like, what do you mean? I'm like,
I hadn't seen that. Like, I was expecting, like the AHL to have followed us on social media or like something like that. Nope. We got added by somebody. All right. Let's talk about these games here a little bit. I mean,
yes. Yeah. Let's talk about it. Sorry. Didn't mean to cut you off there, but I have a question for you, sir. Henderson has been hot and getting good puck luck all season long. I've tried to predict when the train was coming off the rails, but Sean, does it finally look like the PDO train has veered off the rails?
I don't know if I would say definitively, but it's starting to look that way. Yeah. I mean, there are definitely other factors in play here. We talked about fatigue being one of them last time in the preview, so we don't need to, cycle back to what is a very detailed thing I think we got in the last episode. But there are hockey tactics things here too to talk about. I was not a fan of their breakouts 5-on-5. I didn't like a lot of their special team tactics. And yes, there was some bad luck that I feel like needs to at least be talked about a little bit.
Well, those are three good topics to start with. And first and foremost, Henderson's breakouts. What did you see there?
A lot of guys getting locked in. The Silver Knights are pairing two forwards, usually wingers, flying the zone on changes of possession in their own zone. So they're getting a lot of glassing out from the defenseman over the or the last forward in the zone. And so basically what happens is like team they're going against will like have a shot on goal. They'll turn the puck over down low, something else. Henderson player recovers that puck in their own end. Those two highest forwards in the zone are leaving the defensive zone. This is called pushing the pace because the opposing defensemen see this and go, well, we got to go with them. We can't just let guys behind you like that. That's how breakaways happen. So this opens up the top of the D zone and leaves a lot of ice in the neutral zone open. That last forward, usually the center, but not always, stays around the dots for an emergency support. But the D here are just glassing out, and they're doing it kind of blindly. And we talked about San Diego doing this a little bit, but they had more structure in between, whereas these are just glassing out plays to the forwards who pieced out of the D zone early. And their job is basically to recover the puck in the neutral zone and start doing offensive things. And they're getting locked into that decision and not reading the play. Yes, sometimes you have to go glassing out when you're under pressure and you don't have another play. But that's not what is happening in a lot of cases with Henderson on defense here. These glassing outs are becoming turnovers. Opposing forwards go to the half wall to clog it up. You're getting defenders who are stepping up at the blue line, gloving it down and keeping it in play. That's causing a lot of zone exits to be turnovers for Bakersfield in this game and sustained offense for the Condors. And you saw multiple times in this Friday game, Henderson getting hemmed in their own zone from doing exactly that. Defensemen just not even bothering to, pick their head up, read the play when they have time. Just turn around, fire it up the wall, and pray. And their prayers were not answered a lot. And that's what you saw a lot of. It's just sloppy play, trying to exit the zone, counting on wingers to be able to get out in time and just recover that puck in the neutral zone instead of picking your head up, making the right play.
Do you, real quick here, do you think that works against less talented teams that maybe, can't control the neutral zone as well as like a Bakersfield?
I think it works when you're the less talented team, because making, shrewd plays under pressure is hard. So when you can just tell your defenseman, hey, we don't want you to do anything complicated. We don't want you to try and make, risky plays up the middle or have you try and read the players coming to you, just glassing out and let the forwards go figure it out in their zone. That's their job. I think of that as being more of a tactic for when you don't really trust your defenseman to make nuanced reads or tight plays under pressure. And you can see some teams that aren't good at that, but I think of it as more of not necessarily being not as skilled as not having skill in the right places. Like if your defensemen are more Shea Weber style, they're not necessarily speedsters or have good edge work, but are big, physical, and can, read plays well in the offensive zone and swing the stick with a booming slap shot. Those are guys who I feel like that play is going to do well. And because they're not really built for transition defense and defending their blue line necessarily. Whereas Cale Makar is fine with doing this. That dude can turn on a dime and get places, pick up the puck in the neutral zone, attack those guys skating forward instead of backward. I wouldn't say it's necessarily a more successful against lower skill. It's the right skill set.
Gotcha. Thank you for clarifying that. Yeah. Next up, we of course have the special teams. Let's talk about them. What is going on with the Silver Knights special teams?
Let's start with the power play. These breakouts 5v4 for Henderson are atrocious. I mean, they played dump and chase on the power play with an alarming frequency. I want to repeat that. They're dumping and chasing on the power play. In this economy? Jeez. And their structure in making these plays was trying to do controlled breakouts was not great. It seemed very contrived and not well thought out. I'm fine that they're not using the double drop play, but they're not even trying to force 2-on-1s in the entry. You don't see standard kickout sequences. I really don't know what's going on there.
Okay. Hold on there, Mr. Hockey Taxes. Tactics, easy for me to say. Hockey tactics jargonista. Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. Explain what some of that means. You mentioned double drop play, standard kickout sequence. Explain it a little bit more for our listeners.
That's fair. Okay. So we're going to try something a little different here. If you are normally an audio podcast listener, this might be a good chance to switch over to the video version. We'll see how this goes, but I'm going to try and describe it in my best John Madden radio play-by-play kind of way, so you have a visual or an audio picture of what's going on here. But we're going to try and explain this breakout play. All right. So this breakout play you see teams use all the time. This is one of the most common breakout plays, 5-on-4, that you see at just about every level of professional hockey, from the AHL to obviously the NHL. A lot of NHL teams use it, and thus it kind of filters down to the AHL. I've seen a bunch of AHL teams use it this season alone, but let's get the tape rolling here. So what you're going to see is one forward coming from behind the net with the puck, and his job is to push the first forechecker from the opposing team on the penalty kill as far into the neutral zone as he can. And we're going to let the tape run here just a little bit. So he's trying to push that guy back as far as he can. And he's basically still making a read on that defenseman, where if that defenseman doesn't defend him well, or if that forechecker doesn't defend him well, he can just blow past him and continue on to the zone like nothing's happening. But for the most part, that forechecker is going to defend him, and he's going to basically pivot and make a drop pass. And that drop pass is going to go to a skater who is kind of coming behind him in the play, usually around the top of the circles. And now this guy has a head full of steam, and he's going to come flying through the neutral zone. And because that first penalty kill forechecker has been pushed back, he's basically standing still. So he's not going to be able to do anything to effectively defend or pressure that guy with the puck now. Right. And then that puck carrier is going to basically pick a guy who's lined up on the blue line, because typically what happens here is you'll see that first forechecker is toast and the other three kind of line up along the blue line. And he's going to try and create a 2-on-1 here. So this defender along the wall here is his guy. That's who he's going to try and pressure into this 2-on-1. He's going to make him cover this passing option, or he's going to make him cover the puck carrier. And then he's going to just take whatever the defenseman gives to him. So as we see this kind of go through here, defenseman clearly is going to be taking the puck carrier. So he's going to make what I call the kickout pass, where he's going to pass it to the guy along the wall here. So there he goes, skating up, defender makes the read.
Buffer.
Buffering.
On a 13-second video, can't be good. Someone's eating Sean's bandwidth for a nice little midnight snack over there.
Yeah. He goes, makes the kick out play. And from here, that guy can make a lot of choices. He can rim the puck all the way around. He can drop it back, but that's the setup. They have the zone at that point. So, and I'll pivot back to our usual screen here.
Maybe. Oh, there we go.
That's what it looks like. Basically, you have one guy who's responsible for pushing that neutral zone penalty killer all the way back in the neutral zone as far as he can get him. He makes the drop pass. That drop guy comes in with speed, and he's looking to basically isolate one of the defenders on the blue line and make that defender choose either him, the puck carrier, to try and defend, or the guy who's his passing option for that kick-out pass. Once he makes that choice, whether he makes the kick-out or continues in the zone, he's gained the zone at that point. And their goal is to then either see if they can either generate something quick off the rush or turn and set up in their, typically 1-3-1 power play formation. That's a very standard power play kind of breakout play. But that's not what we're seeing from Henderson. And it's one that they've used earlier in the season and have for some reason kind of abandoned it.
Well, that's quite a lot. That's quite a lot to digest.
Yeah, it is. And I get that. It's a bit hard to describe a pretty complex zone entry play. So again, if you're on the audio version, maybe go to our link tree, click on that YouTube all the way at the bottom there. That should give you at least some semblance of a video to kind of pair along with what I'm talking. If this sounds like gibberish, feel free to bookmark this, make a note. You will 100% see this play as described in the AHL all over the place. To my original point, though, Henderson isn't doing this and instead just trying to dump and chase on a power play. Bakersfield didn't even really force them into bad scenarios in their neutral zone on their power plays. Henderson just put themselves there and basically never got their offense set up during the power play because their entries were awful. Like, they had power play opportunities, and I think they must have generated maybe one shot across all their power play attempts. That's not getting it done, and most of it was because they never even got in the zone.
Yeah, you can't be one of the best teams in the AHL and not, not execute your power play, especially with a dump and chase on a power play. I mean, come on, guys. Yeah. Especially when you had a good thing going and you abandoned it. That's a head scratcher for me. But lastly, you mentioned bad puck luck, or at least bad luck anyway. I mean, obviously they've had puck luck in spades this season, but bad luck. What in particular did you see in this game that you thought was maybe more bad luck than a mistake by Henderson?
I mean, credit to Henderson's forwards. They got a lot of sticks on Condors passes in the neutral zone, but just couldn't corral them into like a clean turnover. The Condors' first goal doesn't happen if the Silver Knights get a clean interception on that neutral zone pass instead of just a deflection. Condors make the recovery on the deflection, walk in and score. I mean, that's crappy luck. You did everything right. You've got your stick in the lane. You got your stick on the puck as it was being passed, and then just it hits your stick and you can't turn that into a turnover cleanly going the other way. Ryan Malone's power play goal was way more good fortune than repeatable skill. Henderson also had a lot of instances where they had Moonshine out of position making wild saves in the third period that either missed the net or he somehow just got like a wild stick on. I mean, that's more bad luck than repeatable offense. There were also a lot of.
Go ahead.
It's just some of those things where we knew eventually this was going to come crashing down. We just didn't know how far they could take that train.
Yep. Yeah. And I kept trying to get off early, but they just kept chugging along. So, Hey, you mentioned Mr. Moonshine himself, Stuart Skinner. How'd he look?
Fine. I mean, he had such a light workload in the first 35 minutes of the game. His job was actually recategorized as a part-time employee. Like, he had a couple tough saves towards the end of the second and some scattered ones in the third. The goal he gave up in the third was soft and absolutely should not go in. But his defense really kept him from having to be anything more than ordinary through most of the game. The only other goal he let in was one that you'd be hard-pressed to find a goalie who has a chance on that. Jack Duggan with an absolutely insane tip on a shot going at least 10 feet wide.
Well, any closing thoughts?
3.
Okay.
1, the Kingslayers' depth scoring was something we talked about going into the weekend as the kid line has cooled off. I know I called out Gambardella by name. He showed up with a goal. Brad Malone leaves the color commentary booth to play his first game in a month. He bangs in a 1-1. Cracknell with 2 assists. This is what the Condors need to stay hot. If Benson, Marody, and McLeod aren't able to carry the load on some nights, they need those guys to step up and do the offense, and they did just that for the Condors. Second, we thought this was going to be a Logan Thompson game. It turned into a Yuri Patera game. I don't think the Knights lost this game because of him, but we got asked why Dylan Ferguson isn't the backup. Ferguson's ECHL numbers last season were not good. His ECHL numbers this season are not good. His junior numbers are significantly worse than Patera's playing in the WHL. Has Patera been great in 3 whole games? No, but I don't think Dylan Ferguson would be a significant improvement on what he's done based on how he struggled in the Coast. While goaltending is voodoo, I mean, there are quite a lot of guys who've been sub-900 ECHL goalies that have gotten AHL time this season. Felix Sandstrom, Andrew D'Agostini, Colton Point, Joel Rumpel. And it's gone about as well as you'd expect. Yes, Ferguson played 1 game in Henderson and he got a shutout, but he played 1 game. And yes, Patera's only played 3 games, but I don't think that Dylan Ferguson would be a tremendous upgrade over what Yuri Patera has shown. Like, I don't think the results of any of those games change.
Well, and in all fairness, I mean, Yuri Patera, I mean, granted, the style of hockey is a lot different, over in, the Czech Republic, but I mean, he started out this 2021 season over in the Czech Republic. And I mean, here I am eating my words because his stats weren't that good in the Czech Pro League. 2-12-0, .887, 3-point save percentage, 3.56 goals against average. So I mean, yeah, you're kind of left with a bit of a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of backup goaltender scenario at that point. But it's like, yeah, you can't start Logan Thompson every game. So,
and they've sure tried.
Right. But you'd think such a big statement game against the Kingslayer, you'd think that this would, like we said, this would be a Logan Thompson game. And maybe that's why we were both so readily willing to pick Henderson as the victor in this. I don't know. I mean,
if you would have told me on Thursday that Patera was going to start this game, maybe I switched to Bakersfield, but like, I don't know. Like I said, I don't think Dylan Ferguson gives you significantly better results than Patera at this point. So I feel like grumbling about that is really splitting hairs.
Yeah, a bit of a moot point for sure.
Yeah.
But hey, to finish off the series previews, we've got a fan question. So let me give it to you, unless you want to say it first. It's up to you.
No, go ahead.
Okay. All right. What changes with a team overnight? A team that can score at will to a team that can't find the back of the net. That's Ed Ollie Monton. And remind me again, which fan forum did he post from?
San Diego Gulls. So
okay.
I missed that question in time when we had Brett Fera on to talk about that Gulls Tucson series. Sorry about that, but we will, I wanted to make sure we address it because it's a good question. And I also feel one that extends past just the Gulls' struggles this weekend of looking like they could light the world on fire to, a team that clearly wasn't too ready to play on Saturday. A lot changes. If you ever hear of like the routines that elite athletes go through, like on their game day routine, they're like these really strictly regimented, like down to the minute time of like, I take a nap at this time, I eat this meal, I do this thing, I put my equipment on this order, I tape my stick this way. And a lot of that is trying to maximize like their on ice focus and all of that thing. Because I mean, anything from how well you slept the night before, how well caffeinated you are you, from a nutrition perspective, hitting those peak energy levels at the right time. All of those are incredibly variable and hard to dial in at the NHL level when you have exponentially more resources than these guys. At the AHL level, like you might have slept on the bus in a twin size cot the night before. You might have been in a hotel with roommates who snore. You might have just not gotten a good pregame meal, or for whatever reason just woke up and didn't choose violence that day. Like there are a lot of reasons why just overnight a team vanishes, because those moments in which like the game feels like it's going in slow motion for you and everything's clicking, you slept well, you're caffeinated, you're prepared, you did your video study, and it all just sinks in. Those are really hard to coordinate a lot of variables with, not just in one player, but in a whole team. Like getting those guys to all hit that same moment, during the 60 minutes that you're playing is really, really challenging. There's a lot that goes into it. And at the AHL level, having the resources to kind of try and take some of those variables out of the player's control just don't exist, especially in this goofy ass season where like they can't really see anybody or do their normal off ice routine. So a lot of them are probably game to game really off, especially with travel on buses and who knows where they're sleeping. If it's in a, Holiday Inn that, has their neighbor rated for drug use at 3 a.m. Those places absolutely exist in some of these AHL cities. They exist in NHL cities, but like there's so much that goes into it, not to mention just the opposite effect. The other team, has a good night's sleep. They have a good pregame meal. They feel like they didn't get banged around hard or skate, their legs off in the previous game. There's a lot of factors that can turn, a team that looks great on Friday into a team that looks like garbage on Saturday.
Well, and especially like when the Gulls put up 8 goals on that Friday, and then 1 on Saturday. Like it could just be that they, just left it all out on the ice on Friday, and they were just completely just exhausted the next game. Like they just, got that adrenaline going and maybe, took, a lot more strides and a lot more, put themselves through a lot more exertion than they normally did, or didn't, try and balance out their workload and just kind of, did it balls to the wall every shift. And like I said, wore themselves out. I mean, that could be a possibility too, and then you throw in taxi squads. And I mean, even from a Friday to a Saturday, it's like NHL team, Anaheim could have gotten a wild hair up their butt and been like, hey, I mean, it wasn't the case this weekend, but they could have been like, hey, we're going to call up 6 players and then put them all back on the team. Like team chemistry is not a thing this year. Like it's just, okay, I take it back. It is a thing. You have the core group of your players and they do build chemistry and things like that. But when you're shuffling guys in and out more so than they ever have been in their lives, probably even in like Mighty Mites, I mean, this is just, it's unprecedented. And I know that's a buzzword that gets used to the nth degree these days, but I mean, how would you like, okay, we're going to play a game and it was really good. And then half those guys that scored and were on a hot streak are now up with the taxi squad. So now you're going to play with these guys on your first line. I mean, Greg Patterin was the captain of the Colorado Eagles, for Christ's sake, to start the season. And because TJ Tiny was up with the taxi squad. And so it's like this guy that's brand new to your organization, you put the C on his chest. And yeah, I mean, that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much that goes into it, like you said.
Not to mention too, I mean, we're just talking about things that are within the realm of the, day-to-day athlete. There's also you're away from your family, away from your kids, your parents, your grandparents. God knows what goes on in these dudes' personal lives that, affects them. Like, cause they're probably not able to have a regular social life that's, fulfilling to them. So that's a huge drain. Like, these things creep in on your, job performance, whether you're somebody who sits behind a desk all day like me, or you're a peak athlete. Like that's them's the breaks. And that's why you see guys have these like insanely regimented routines that, you know, look like they should be featured in the sequel to American Psycho. Like,
there was a sequel to American Psycho. It starred Mila Kunis and it was awful. Just saying. It had William Shatner in there too. So, but I digress. Yeah, it was bad, but no, I get it. The saying goes, don't bring your outside drama into work. It's going to happen.
it's gonna happen.
You try and put that delineation between the two, but it's going to happen. You know, if a guy's going through a divorce or every guy's away from his family. So, you know, that's got to be wearing down on him mentally, but yeah, we could go on and on, but thank you so much for the question. We really appreciate getting questions. It's something we haven't had pretty much all season. So for fans to start chiming in and everything, keep it up. Yeah, we're more than happy to answer those. So in the meantime, we need to take a little bit of a breather. Yes, time for a break. You got it. And I'm feeling some madness. I'm feeling some dairy products coming along. You know, on balance, off balance, doesn't matter. I am the cream of the crop. Oh, wait. Excuse me.
Off balance, on balance, doesn't matter. I am the cream of the crop. Yeah, nobody does it better. Oh, yeah.
All right. I think it's time for the cream of the crop after we come back. Just had a hunch. Stay tuned. Okay. Last break of the episode, last break of the show. And it's time. It is time.
It's time, Shawnee. Let me tell you a little something about the best players in the AHL. 3 from Sean, 3 from Cece. You get the cream of the crop. Oh, yeah.
Let's do it.
All right, first one up for me here. I'm taking Liam Foodie from the Cleveland Monsters. 1 goal, 3 assists, 4 points on the weekend. Hard to pick, and that was from one game too. Hard to pick one guy from that game alone, as Cleveland just murdered Rochester 9-2. But all primary points for Liam Foodie, so I'm going to take him in a game that was an absolute ass beating.
Couldn't have said it better myself. My first player for the cream of the crop, definitely somebody that we spend a little bit of time talking about in the Colorado and Texas series, Kiefer Sherwood. My God, was he on one. 4 goals, 3 of them on special teams for their power play goals. And he also chipped in 1 assist on Saturday. 3-0 victory for the Eagles on Saturday. Sorry, the assist came on Sunday. I'm not used to them playing a Saturday-Sunday set. But yeah, Kiefer Sherwood, 5 points on the weekend. 3-0 victory for the Eagles on Saturday. 4-1 victory on Sunday. Kiefer Sherwood, my first cream of the crop. Yeah.
For me, second, Kevin Roy, Tucson Roadrunners, 7 assists on the weekend. I believe Brett Fera said that tied it or set a team record.
Yes.
Yeah. He's had 12 points in his last 9 games. Yeah. He's on fire. And you score 7 points in a weekend, you're going to end up on the cream of the crop. He is my second cream of the crop for the weekend.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Sean channeling rather his inner macho man. That's what I like to hear. Now, let me tell you about a little something. Let me get a little intense here. I'm not going to scream. I'm just going to get real close to the mic. I'm going to tell you about a guy by the name of Matt Boldy. Yeah, the Boldy and the Beautiful. We're getting into the soap operas here. Yeah. 2 goals, 1 assist, and a pro weekend debut with the Iowa Wild. We talked about him a little bit. Yeah, he's feeling the madness. He's feeling the weekend. You know it.
Stop laughing. In the pro wrestling world, we call that breaking kayfabe. I broke character. You're not supposed to do that. Matt Boldy, my second star of the week. Sean, who's your third star?
I mean, I don't know how you choose anyone besides Michael Carcone. Man banged home 6 tucks on the weekend. Like,
Ooh.
6 goals in a weekend. That's not like a 3-3. He banged in 6 goals in 2 games. That's, yeah. You're the cream of the crop for me, buddy. That's it. 6 goals.
And a very well-deserved CCM/AHL player of the week for Mr. Carcone. No doubt. Third and final player for the cream of the crop.
Let me tell you a little something about Cole Caulfield. Yeah, he's going to get a cup of coffee in the big time one of these days, and it's going to be more than a cup of coffee, you can betcha. Oh, yeah, 2 goals, 1 assist in his debut on Friday, and he potted another one on Saturday night. Both of them, big surprise here. Laval Rocket wins. Oh, yeah. Cole Caulfield, he's went to the locker room. He snapped it to a Slim Jim, and he felt that beef and spice. Cole Caulfield, my third cream of the crop. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I could run through a brick wall right now. I tell you what, man. Sean, you should be used to this by now.
I don't think Cole Caulfield snapping into a Slim Jim. All right.
He probably doesn't even know what those commercials are. He's so young.
I barely remember those commercials.
Oh yeah.
Right. Well, it is. Speaking of the Laval Rockets, it's quiz time.
Ooh.
And given that the Rocket are basically just gonna, roll everyone in Canada, I feel like we needed to expand the Rockets' pool of opponents here. So I have created a quiz that I'm going to call Rocket versus Rockets.
I'm ready to rocket.
Appropriate place in the world to host said quiz.
Very nice.
So I'm going to give you two categories, and you're going to have to basically just tell me which category is the bigger number.
Okay.
That's it. That's all the rules.
Okay.
So, there are 9 questions.
Whew.
And as you will learn, this is the Laval Rocket taking on another rocket of some kind. So, which is greater? The total number of goals scored by the Laval Rocket since the beginning of the 1920 season, or the total number of manned space flights by NASA?
I'm going to say the number of goals scored by the Rockets since the beginning of the 1920 season.
That is correct. The Laval Rocket have scored 264 goals over that time span, compared to NASA's 242 manned space flights in history.
Ooh, that was a close one.
CC on the board.
All right. Question number 2.
Second up here.
Mm-hmm.
The number of points scored by Jake Evans as a member of the Laval Rocket, or the total number of episodes of Nickelodeon's Rocket Power?
Oh, I'm going to say the total number of episodes of Nickelodeon's Rocket Power.
Final answer.
Final answer.
I'm sorry, CC. Jake Evans has 83 points to 71 episodes of Rocket Power.
Oh, I thought it lasted longer than that, but I never got into that show. So
that's a shame. That was a classic.
I've heard. So
all right.
One for 2, rather. I keep interrupting.
A little more up your alley, I think.
Okay.
The number of career shutouts by Caden Primu that he has earned with the Rocket, or the number of Poison U.S. top 50 charted singles featuring Ricky Rocket?
Oh, I mean, yeah, I'm more of a classic rock guy, but I never really got into Poison that much, for crying out loud. But hey, why not? Poison, top 50 singles with Ricky Rocket.
Final answer, CC.
Final answer. Quit trying to psych me. I know I'm wrong.
That is correct. Ricky Rocket had 15 top 50 charted singles with Poison. Caden Primu, 6 shutouts.
Wow, that surprises me. I didn't know Poison was that prolific. That's very surprising. All right.
So, question number 4.
Yes.
The number of career wins for Joel Bouchard coaching the Rocket, or the total number of episodes in the entire Pokemon anime that focus solely on Team Rocket?
How do you gauge that? How do you measure that? Like Rocket in the title, or
they are the focus of the episode? Like Ash and the rest of his crew are like in the background doing stuff, but they're the focus of the episode. There are websites for this.
Oh. I've gathered as much. For those who don't know, which is pretty much everybody out there, this quiz started out with 5 questions. Then Sean reached out to me and said, the quiz is now 7 questions. Then he reached out to me again and says, the quiz is now 9 questions. This man is obsessed with the quizzes, and I'm all for it. I love it. I love his dedication and his obsession. But I'm going to say coaching wins Bouchard with the Rocket over Team Rocket Team Rocket Pokemon Team Rocket focused episodes.
That is incorrect. Joe Bouchard wins 79, Team Rocket episodes 82.
That's too close. That's not fair. That is absolutely not fair. 2 for 4. I got 3 more to get, right?
2 for 4. That is correct.
Right. Keep it rolling. Let's do this.
The Laval Rocket win percentage from 1920 to present, or the Houston Rockets all-time win percentage.
Oh God. I'm going to say Laval Rocket win percentage since 1920. Final answer.
That is correct. Laval 55.2 over Houston 52.6.
Yep. I mean, you got a number of years, so I figured that was a safe bet. 3 for 5. Woo.
Question 6. The number of career points Xavier Ouellette has as captain of the Rocket, or the total touchdowns scored by Rocket Ishmael in his college and pro football career combined.
Rocket Ishmael. I think I pronounced his first name correct. I'm going to say Ishmael's combined touchdowns over collegiate and pro career. Final answer. This is probably a trap, though.
That is incorrect. Xavier Ouellette, 55 points total in his career as captain of the Rocket. Rocket Ishmael, 45 career touchdowns. Question 7. The number of times Elton John's single Rocket Man has been certified platinum, or the number of power play goals Joseph Blandisi has scored as a member of the Laval Rocket.
Elton John's single certified platinum, final answer.
That is correct. And you would not believe what those numbers are. Elton John's Rocket Man, 3 times certified platinum. Blandisi, 2 career power play goals with the Rocket. I know. I made that face too.
That's quite you've been digging deep for these. I like this.
Oh, yeah. Number 8. You need one of these last 2 to pull ahead here. You got 4. You need one of these last 2.
I do.
Number 8. The Guinness World Record for number of goals in a Rocket League game, or the total number of regular season fights in Laval Rocket history, according to hockeyfights.com.
I told Sean I was playing Rocket League this weekend. He goes, "Oh, that's another question." Forgot about Rocket League. I'm going to say Guinness World Record for Rocket League goals. Final answer.
Congratulations, Cece. You have won. Rocket League total goals for a single game record is 141 over 91 Laval career points.
Holy crow, 141 goals in a Rocket League game?
I have no idea how that's possible, but Guinness World Record for video games are always absurd.
It's a 5-minute match, and there's so many factors that go into that. It's insanity. Wow.
Guinness said that was 141. I don't know what you want me to tell you. I didn't watch.
No, that's fine. That's a good YouTube video to go search when I'm done with this. That's crazy.
Just for posterity's sake, would you like to hear question 9?
Why not? You put so much work into it. Lay it on me.
The number of MCU Marvel Cinematic Universe movies that Rocket Raccoon appears in, or the number of shootout wins for the Laval Rocket in the 1920 season.
I'm going to say shootout wins for the Laval Rocket.
That is correct. They had 6 over Rocket Raccoon appearances in the MCU at 4.
A 4 sounded right in my head. So, yeah. But no, Sean, I got to say, Sean comes in here every Tuesday, or at least every Monday for our Tuesday show. He puts together the quiz. He meticulously crafts it like an artiste. He gets the chef's kiss because he just puts the nice little bow on top of it. And yeah, you do so well with these. I'm always impressed. Thank you, Sean.
That was by far the most heavily researched quiz I've done for the show, and also the dumbest.
Hey, dumbest is a loose term, and I would not say it was the dumbest. I say it was probably one of the most clever and enjoyable, I'd say, of the quizzes that I've taken.
All right, Cece. Well, as our winner, you get 30 seconds of FaceTime here. What's on your mind?
Well, I didn't actually have a topic coming into this, as I most often do not. But Sean did ask me if the hockey jersey I was wearing, I think this is the first jersey I've ever worn during the Calder Farmstead, and this is episode number 28. I don't have a whole lot, but he asked me if it was a Peoria Rivermen jersey. It's actually a Colorado Gold Kings jersey from their West Coast Hockey League days from 1998 to 2002. And it got me thinking, does Colorado need another AA minor hockey league team? Now, Rat, they've had a number in the Central Hockey League. They had the Colorado Eagles in the ECHL. They had the Colorado Gold Kings in the WCHL down in Colorado Springs. And of course, there's the rumblings that, Sean doesn't give a whole lot of credence to in regards to the Stockton Heat getting moved to Colorado Springs, possibly by the Calgary Flames after this season. And it may or may not happen, but you've got a nice little building down there with some Olympic size, training facilities and everything. The rinks would obviously have to be made smaller, but I digress. The point I wanted to make was an ECHL team in not Colorado Springs, but Broomfield, Colorado, which is just outside of Denver. They have the First Bank Center, which used to host the very stereotyped name, the Rocky Mountain Rage was the name of the team, the Central Hockey League team. That was the, they didn't last very long, to say the least. I think they only lasted a season. But my thought is to have a all in-state system, the Avalanche, the Eagles, and this ECHL team in the First Bank Center. It's a great facility. They still hold, it's only about 4,000 or 5,000 people, but that's perfect for an ECHL arena. I mean, the Steelheads, where I used to cover, 5,000 seat arena there at the Idaho Central Arena. So I guess my thing is Colorado, Denver Metro, 3 million plus people. I think personally, obviously there's a lot of financials and stuff that could go into it, but I think the ECHL needs more teams out west here. And I do think that the First Bank Center in Broomfield, Colorado would be a great place for them. Bring an ECHL team back to Colorado.
All right.
Random, I know.
This wrapped it up there nicely. That's it for the show. If you guys are enjoying the show, please make sure you subscribe so you get episodes in a timely fashion. Also, please rate and review the podcast wherever you are. If you're listening to it on Audible or Spotify, I don't think they do ratings, but Apple certainly does. Throw us an Apple Podcast rating. Or if you're watching on YouTube, like the video and comment what you thought of the episode, as well as click the little bell so you can subscribe. Doing so helps others find the show, and your reviews help us improve it. You can also follow us on social media where we post memes and other silly things. At Calder Farmstead on Twitter, at the Calder Farmstead on Instagram and Facebook. Links to all of that and more can be found on our link tree, which is scrolling down below here. But for you on the audio version, it's linktr.ee/the Calder Farmstead. If you scroll all the way to the bottom there, you'll see all our social buttons. And our social media is not the same across all three of them. So you should follow us on all three to make sure that you don't miss any memes or updates or randomness from us. Cece, where can people find you?
My name is Cece Hockley. Calder Farmstead is part of the Full Press Radio Network. You can find this program, obviously, and a lot of other great hockey pods, a lot of other great sports and sports entertainment shows as well at www.fullpresscoverage.com. Nice little menu up at the top there. Click it, boom, drop down. Me personally, you can find me representing Full Press Hockey on Twitter at FPC_AHL and at my personal Twitter account at CCHawk. That's SEESEEHAWK. See what I did there? Yeah, I'd say 75-80% of it is about hockey, but I also tweet about music and pro wrestling and whatever else I feel like I need to chime in on. So hopefully I keep it interesting for you guys. I think I do. Check out my writing on the Full Press Coverage Network at www.fullpresshockey.com. My last article was a nice little game recap from that Saturday night game where Sampo Ranta made his debut for the Colorado Eagles. By the way, congrats to him on his Sunday game, first professional goal. Way to go. Rambo Santa, as the fans like to call him. So yeah, that's my latest from the website. Sean, where can people find you?
I'm Sean O'Brien. You can find me on Twitter at Sean O'Brien81. That's SeanObrien81. I'm also on Instagram, and you can follow me on there too. I actually am now posting things on there. That's at Sean O'Brien_81. If you're curious about all of these fancy stat terms that we use, the point shares model, PDO, we're going to start talking about projected standings here coming up soon, as those are getting important and interesting. All of that is found on my Tableau page. It's bit.ly/data dump and chase, all lowercase, all one word. Big thanks to Adrian Drake, who made our awesome theme music. You can find him on social media at AD_dysfunction, DYSFUNCTION, so we can make music for you too. CC, take us home.
That'll be it for episode number 28 of the Calder Farmstead podcast. For Sean O'Brien, I'm CC Hockley. As always, we thank you guys for listening, and also, as always, keep your stick on the ice.